All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mary Pishny. I'm a product manager on Data Studio.
And I'm Riccardo Muti. I'm a product manager as well.
We're excited to be here today. So we have a pretty full session for you, so we'll just go ahead and jump right in. First things first, let's start with questions. So we will have time at the end for questions. You probably have seen this slide in some of your breakouts, but if you're not aware, there's a Dory link in the app. We also will have live questions as well, so feel free to make use of both. We're excited to hear your questions at the end. OK, so we have about 40 minutes of content for you. And the content's really structured around common problems that many of you have faced when you're using BI tools and really trying to get data out to your colleagues so you all can make better decisions. So to start us off, we're going to do a little warm-up. It's the end of day 2 on this wonderful conference. So I'm going to do a little audience participation. Just all you have to do is raise your hand. It's pretty minimal. So I'm going to ask you a question. Raise your hand if this resonates. Let's see here. So raise your hand if you have started running a query, started taking a little bit of time, so you got distracted, you went to go check your email, and you never came back. All right. Personally, it's definitely happened. OK, another one for you. Raise your hand if you get asked to write a SQL query for a colleague on a regular basis. There's some laughter. Resonates with us. OK, last but not least, not Data Studio, not Google Cloud related, San Francisco related. How many of you have visited San Francisco in the summer and frozen? Yes, I'm a resident, and I still get caught off guard. So as I said, we're excited to be here today. We have about the next 45 minutes with you all. We'll spend the majority of it on talking about these kind of common problems, and then actually going through the real solutions that you can start using today. We have lots of demos planned for you, so I hope you guys are excited. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about some of the new features, and a lot of these are interspersed throughout our content today, so you'll be seeing a lot of stuff that's brand new as of today. And then, as I said, we'll have time for Q&A at the end. OK, so to kind of set the stage, many of you have experienced a lot of these challenges that we're going to talk through. But in this case, we're going to use a fictional character named Ruth. Ruth works at the FAA, and she is somebody who came to Next last year. She watched the Data Studio and Bigquery session and got really excited about what it could do for her and her work. So she started using it to distribute data to her teams and start analyzing data on flight delays. And we're going to kind of use this thread throughout of some of these common challenges that she's seen as she's progressing in her career. One thing that I would call out is that Ruth was a victim of her own success. She was able to start using Data Studio and Bigquery to really start solving some tough problems. And then the emails started coming in. Can you get me access to this data? Can you help me with this query? So we're going to talk about how we can scale and kind of solve some of those problems. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Riccardo to kick us off on analysis.
Sure. Thank you, Mary. So as Mary mentioned, Ruth became known as the SQL guru, the person who, if you had a business question, you could send a question to her. She'd know how to craft a SQL query for you and send you back your CSV file or your spreadsheet so you could do your analysis. But she quickly became inundated with those requests. So her goal is how can she empower her colleagues, many of whom are not quite so technical as her, not quite such a SQL guru, to self-serve, to do some of their own data analysis. But some of the challenges with that are, number one, how do we make data analysis easy enough for those less technical users? Some of them don't know much SQL. Some of them don't know any SQL. So really making it easy means making it visual, making it interactive, making it natural. And then the other thing that happens is she'll send somebody a report, and they'll say, well, can you also add this column and this column, and I need these two things added together. We can't anticipate every dimension and every metric that all these different users might need. And they sometimes invent their own metrics derived on top of the data. How can we make it possible for them to enrich the data, do a little bit of this light data modeling, and add their own dimensions and metrics and calculations, and make it as easy as them doing that sort of thing by writing a formula in a spreadsheet, for example. And last but not least, how do we make that whole experience just wicked fast? Like, if you're clicking on a column in a column chart, or you're clicking on a slice in a pie chart, whereas when you're running a SQL query, if you get a result over terabytes of data in 10 seconds, 15 seconds, that's rather amazing, but it's not good enough in this scenario. People are going to be clicking through things, drilling, filtering, slicing, dicing. It needs to be 2 seconds, 1 second, maybe sub-second. So How do we do that? So enough talking about this. I'm going to show you how you can do it. So we already talked about how Ruth is really the champion for BigQuery within the FAA, within her organization, within her team. She got all of this flight data landed into BigQuery. And from there, she writes her SQL queries. She's super productive. She gets her answers. She exports the data. She sends CSV files to people, and so on. But if you wanted to go from BigQuery to Data Studio, how exactly do you do that? Well, it can be as simple as this. I just go from a BigQuery table, and I go to Export, and I say Explore in Data Studio. And it's going to create the connection for you, set it all up. And in a moment here, we'll see a live connection to the BigQuery table and some results that are coming back. And when you do this, and you actually save your work, one of the artifacts that gets created is called a data source. It's what Data Studio calls a data source. And it is the proxy for your data, for your BigQuery table. It's a secure connection to it. It knows how to authenticate to it. You can give all of your fields friendly, human-readable names. You can add additional calculated fields. And now, if you share this with your users instead of a CSV file or a spreadsheet, they're one click away from creating a report on top of this without worrying about prepping the data or connecting to the data, or just maybe visually exploring the data. And that's what I'm going to focus on today. You know Data Studio as this great tool to be able to design these really beautiful reports. But right now, I don't even know what report I want. I'm new to this data. I want to familiarize myself with it. I want to see what's in it, what interesting metrics and trends, what are some different ways of visualizing the data. And so I want just a really productive, rapid visual exploration experience. And so that's Data Studio Explorer. It's a different part of Data Studio that many people haven't played with yet. But it's getting better and better with every month that we invest into it. And I want to show you. So one of the things I might do first is I might just have a sort of metadata question, like how large is this data set? How large is this table? This scorecard will aggregate a metric into a single number. And so it automatically created a record count metric for me, which is the number of rows. And so this is going to aggregate the total number of rows in the table. And just like that, I can see I have 116 million rows worth of data in this BigQuery table. So all of the performance that you're going to see as I'm clicking around, drilling, slicing, filtering, is doing live queries over 116 million rows worth of data. And it's still going to be fast. So each row represents a flight. So this is 116 million flights over the last almost 20 years or so worth of data. Another analytic technique that I will use is looking at the same data in different ways through different types of visualizations, different types of charts, or in this case, maybe a map. What I want to do is I want to look at which states have the most flights departing from them, which states have the most departures. And just like that, it live queried 116 million rows, geocoded the states based on their name, and plotted them on a map. And they're colored in color intensity by how many departures are from those states. So the most is California, followed closely by Texas. That's at the state level. What if I wanted to look at the city level? What are the cities with the most departures in the United States for domestic commercial flights? Well, another analytic technique is to look at data different ways simultaneously. So I'm not limited to one chart. I can add another chart beside this. And maybe here I want to go add the origin city. And before I drag that in, what do you think the city is in the United States with the most departures for domestic flights? Anyone want to venture a guess? LA. Anyone else? JFK. Okay, those are good guesses. I'm going to drag this in, drum roll. It's Chicago. There you go. And so I'll just make this a little bit bigger so we can easily read it. Top 3, Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas. Does anyone know why those cities are special? Connections. They are the largest hub of the 3 largest airlines, United, Delta, and American Airlines, respectively. Cool. So those are the top cities with departures in the US.
All right, Riccardo, we're in the Bay Area. Can we look at destinations coming into San Francisco?
Oh, so we want to look at the destination is San Francisco, and
yes.
so what are the cities with the most departures? Not anywhere, but to San Francisco
yes.
specifically.
Yep.
So it sounds like we want to filter to San Francisco, and so look how easy that is. I can just go up to my filter shelf here. I've got a field called destination. Destination city name. I'll pick that. I can open this up, and just like that, I've got a filter. I can scroll down and find San Francisco, but this is Google, so let's Google it. So I'm going to do San Francisco, if I can spell San Francisco. OK. And now I don't need to uncheck everything else. I can just have this handy button here that says I only want San Francisco. And just like that, no SQL, no where clause, and sub-second response, I've filtered 116 million rows the city with the most departures to San Francisco is no longer Chicago, it's LA. So a lot of people commuting from LA to San Francisco. These charts aren't just charts. They're not just pretty pictures. They are automatically interactive, and we're making them more and more interactive every month. So one of the things that we're launching just today is the ability to quickly sort any chart that supports sorting, to be able to sort it right from the chart. I don't have to go into the configuration for it. I could just say, well, if these are the cities with the most departures to San Francisco, what are the cities with the fewest departures to San Francisco over the last 20 years? Has anyone ever flown from Lewiston, Idaho to San Francisco? Okay, over the last 20 years, there was a grand total of 1 flight. So if you were on that flight, it was literally a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Also interesting, that's catching my eye here, is there were 8 flights from San Jose to San Francisco. If you don't know your Bay Area geography, that is like 38 miles from here. I took an Uber. Mary does this commute several times a week. Yep. I don't know if you noticed that once every couple of years or so, there's a flight home available.
I'm going to start looking.
So yeah, so these are the insights that sort of we can reveal only by interacting with the data and just exploring. Not only are these charts interactive, but they are automatically linked to each other. I didn't do any special configuration here, but if I want to filter by California, I don't have to keep defining these filters in the filter shelf. I'm already plotting something by state, so I could just click on California to cross-filter cities with the most departures in California, in Texas, in Florida, and look at the speed that I'm getting from that. How am I getting that speed? So actually, it's courtesy of the Bigquery Bi Engine. There was a session on this just before this one. It was shown in the keynote as well. This is launching in beta today, so definitely go back and watch those videos and check this out and learn more about it. All you really need to know about it is this column store in-memory engine. It just makes everything super fast. Okay? So this is operating on top of Bigquery Bi Engine. So you might have recognized that technique that I did there as sort of a drill down, like I'm drilling down from state to city and drilling into California and Texas and Florida and so on. It's good if I want these sort of multifaceted views, a map and a chart. But what if I don't want to consume the space for that? I really just need the one with the ability to navigate between those 2 levels of detail, state and city. So you can now do that. I'm going to take origin state name and drag it into this chart, into the hierarchy. And now, what is this button? I can drill up from city to state. So the top states, I can drill back down to top cities. This is drill down, and it's available today in Data Studio for most of the basic chart types.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can applaud that? Sure, why not? OK, not only can I drill down, but I can still do that filter drill down that I did before. So I can look at, for example, what are the top cities in California? Just select California, drill down, and those are the top cities in California. Pretty cool, huh? So what if I wanted to drill down into multiple things? Like what if I wanted to drill down into only the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, and Washington? This can be actually kind of tricky to do in some tools where you're limited to drill down into a single item at a time. Here I can do multi-select. You'll see the Pacific Northwest selected in the map, and I can drill down and see these are the cities with the most departures in the Pacific Northwest. OK, we haven't done any time series analysis yet, so maybe that would be a good point to introduce that, so look at some trends over time. So maybe let me multi-select these, and I'm just going to make a little bit of room so that I can do some light rearrangement and make some space for me to introduce another chart here. So you can do some light layout and explore. Let's add a time series chart. And again, my automatic record count metric is just going to show me the number of flights over this almost 20-year time period. And one of the things we see is that there are some months with missing data, so no data is without its data quality issues. There's also a lot of noise because there's seasonal fluctuation. I'm really just interested in the long-term trend. Here I'm going to drill up. I didn't even configure a hierarchy in this case. It just knows that this is a date-time data type, and so it added year, month, and day for me. I can just drill up without any configuration. That's month, and that's year. Automatic drill down. Now, you'll notice that it plummets in 2018, and that doesn't seem to make sense to me because if I drill back down to month, I don't see it plummeting at the end of 2018. The thing is, what's going on here? It looks like the data only goes up until July, August 2018. So I don't have full data for 2018. Look how easy this is to filter this out. I only want to look at this by year, and I want to drag year up here, and I'm going to say, OK, 2018 has partial data, so let me just filter that out. I'm doing the opposite of what I did before. I don't want only 2018. I want everything but 2018. I'll click Apply, and I filtered out that year with partial data just like that. So that's the number of flights that's been increasing over the years. Be interesting to see what other metrics I have in here. So let's see. I'll go to my metric picker, and I think we've got some data on flight delays. So I've got, yeah, like departure delay. Do you think that the average departure delay has gone down or up over the last few years? How many people think it's gone down? That's pretty sad. How many people think it's gone up? OK, the vast majority of you. OK, so let's drag departure delay. And departure delays have been going up for at least the last 17 years or so. They've been getting gradually worse, from about 6 minutes to 17, 18 minutes in the last year or a couple years ago. So is that trend true everywhere, though? And again, you'll see the power of this cross-filtering. I can explore my data with minimal to little to no configuration. I noticed Seattle on here. I live in Seattle, and so I do the commute, the jet commute from Seattle to, oh, some Seattle people. OK. I heard, or person, one person, OK. So I can look at, does this trend hold true? Has the delays been increasing for Seattle to San Francisco? And just filter that. And it hasn't, thankfully. So thankfully for me, I guess that flight has been holding steady. What other metrics do I have in here? So I've got departure delay. I can also add arrival delay. So look at the arrival delay alongside that. And that actually has been steady, or if anything, decreasing as well. Other metrics, I think I have a metric in here about the actual elapsed flight time. Maybe that's also what I care about. How long is it going to take me to fly from Seattle to San Francisco? I mean, this I wouldn't think would change very much, except it has a lot. What's interesting is this has gone up a lot between 2004 and 2007, and then again really skyrocketing the last couple of years. If the flight's not delayed, then why would the actual time of the flight be taking longer? Well, I mean, I guess it's possible that they've just scheduled the flight to take longer. So I actually have the scheduled elapsed time of the flight. And sure enough, those are correlated. So they've actually just been scheduling my flight from Seattle to San Francisco to take longer and longer. Why would they schedule a flight to take longer? Busy airports. OK, what could that impact? Fuel? They're flying slower due to fuel?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Can you take a look at taxi time? So taxiing in and taxiing out? See if there's anything on there.
Yes. So maybe the time is spent on the ground and not in the air. Yeah. So I can search for taxi. The problem is, as you just pointed out, yeah, I guess there's taxi out and there's taxi back in. I'm actually interested in the sum of those. I don't have that. But I can easily create that by just creating a calculated field and saying I want taxi out plus taxi in. And of course, I can do other calculations as well. But just on the fly, oops, taxi in, click apply. Does that trend look familiar? A big increase from 2004 to 2007, and then again the last couple years. Taxi time has gone from 19 minutes to almost half an hour. So is that trend holding across other airports in the United States? If I look at Chicago, it was getting better for a long while until the last 5 years or so that it's been getting worse. In New York, it's kind of always been bad, over half an hour. But it looks like in 2007 and 2008, it was close to 45 minutes on the ground in a plane. So these are just some of the insights that you can get by visually exploring your data in this way. Showed off new features of Data Studio, as well as, of course, the Bigquery Bi Engine that was giving us the snappy response throughout the whole thing. So I've analyzed my data. What next? I'm going to hand it over to Mary to take the next steps.
Awesome. Thanks, Riccardo. All right. So Riccardo went through some of the analysis workflow. But we know that there's kind of a next stage of making sure that this is consumable for users. So I'm going to hop back here real quick. So jumping back to our heroine, Ruth, she has 4 problems she wants to solve now that she's gone through this analysis stage. One is that she needs to make sure that that interactive experience continues on for viewers so they can continue to interact with the data once she shares it out with them. 2 is she wants it to be tailored for the particular audiences, whether that's leadership or practitioners on the ground. And then lastly, she needs to be able to actually distribute these reports in a really efficient and effective manner. So those are the problems I want us to solve. Let's go see how to do that. OK, so we were, let me find the right tab. Oh, wrong tab. Here we go. OK, so Riccardo walked us through this analysis, this deep dive on San Francisco. I'm going to actually take what he has here. And I have a report going on that I've been spending some time on, looking at some of these same trends. And I'm going to actually go over here what we have is that report that I created. So it's looking at flights by carrier, cancellations, arrival and departure delays. And then I also have a San Francisco deep dive. And I'm ready to drop those charts that we just created into our report. So all I did was save that analysis. I copied those charts, and then I brought it in here so I can continue to work with this data and start sharing it out. So I'm going to apply some light styling changes. OK, actually looks pretty good. Let me drop this down a little bit. OK, so the first thing I want to solve here is that I could share this out with my viewers as is, sure, but I want them to still be able to interact with this data. So I can add controls to the page that make that really easy for our users. So one is origin city name. So they can quickly select what origin of the flight's taking off from. And I'm also going to add one so they can filter by carrier name. So let me carrier name. Perfect. So what that looks like here is I can come in and say, show me all the United flights. Do a quick select. And that's going to update on the fly.
Cool.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I often find, or that we often see as well, is that you share this report out with people, and then they come back with questions like, what does this mean? And am I interpreting this correctly? How do I use this report? So
yes.
You have any tips for how to solve that? Yes,
that's a common problem or a challenge that we hear is how do I educate users when they're looking at this data? So what I'm going to do in this case is we have something called URL embed that makes that easy to embed other content directly into your report. So in this case, we have flight data, and it's looking at San Francisco in particular. So I actually found a YouTube video, and it gives an overview of the San Francisco Airport annual report. And so I'm actually going to include this directly into my report. And so users, as they're interacting with the data, can come in and learn a little bit more about San Francisco operations, give them some context for as they're consuming this data. And then lastly, it's pretty common that as you're going through some analysis, you're taking notes, you're finding some callouts about the schema. I've put those all in just a quick doc with some information about the data set, some information about the schema itself, some delay codes. And I'm going to take that same approach here, and instead of having to send this over in an email, I'm going to actually just embed that directly into the report. So I can now interact with both the video, I won't play it for us, it's a little dated, and this document that has some more context on my analysis all right here. So pretty powerful. So now that I have this interactive viewing experience, I've tailored it so they can consume the data right away, and now I'm ready to actually start distributing that data. So we have a couple different options based on the audience. Number one is I can come in here and just download this report. We know that a lot of people still operate in PDF mode, so we can quickly get a PDF to download with them. I can also just share the link with them directly so they can quickly go and consume this online.
The download PDF feature is definitely really useful, but I think one thing we find often is like people are asking me to email them the updated report every week. So is there a way that we can just automate that?
You set me up, Riccardo. That's perfect. So we have email delivery, which delivers the report in your inbox. It's a really rich experience. I actually going to give you guys all a little homework and go try this out today. It puts the report directly into your inbox. So in a lot of cases, you can consume that data right there. Sometimes you might want to click through to learn a little bit more. It's also available in PDF. So you can make sure that if you want your team to be seeing this every Monday or every day you're looking at this data, you can make sure that this is in front of them in a place where we spend a lot of our time these days. So we've gone through the analysis with Riccardo, as well as actually taking that report, making it into something that's consumable but still interactive, and distributing it out. We're going to jump back to Ruth's story, and with that, we're going to bring Minhaz up on the stage, who's going to show us what's next for Ruth. All right.
All right. Thank you, Mary. Hi, I'm Minhaz Kazi. I'm one of the developer advocates for Data Studio, and we're going to take you through the rest of Ruth's story. So Ruth has been doing very well at her job. She has set up this whole entire data pipeline based on Bigquery Bi Engine. She has set up all the dashboards, set up the PDF exports. People are getting reports. People are running analysis. Everything has been going really well for Ruth until something really terrible happens. Ruth gets promoted to be a manager. So now Ruth has a different set of problems because she had solved all that issue where people were emailing her about, can you write this SQL for me, or can you debug this SQL code for me? But it went from being that to people setting up meetings with her, and people setting up emails saying that, hey, my dashboard is broken, can you fix it? My dashboard is running very slow, can you fix that one? I've been getting this code error issue, what is this about? So she starts getting all of these complaints, and she starts taking note of them, and she wants to solve this with her team. So the major problem she runs across is, again, can we make all the dashboards fast? Now, in Ruth's department, they were using the BI engine to make things faster. However, at this point, all the other departments in her organization are not using the same BI engine approach. For example, marketing has been pulling in data from Google Analytics, Google Ads. Finance has been putting their data in CSV files and in sheets. HR has set up their own MySQL instance in the basement in a server. So all of those reports need to be faster. So what is the solution that Ruth came up with? Well, you obviously can migrate to the Bigquery Bi Engine. You can take your data, put it in Bi Engine, and pull the reports from there. And if you think about the spectrum where you have, I want really fast dashboards and I want my data to be updated regularly, Bi Engine actually takes care of both of these. However, if that's not an option for you, but then you can go the extract data way, which will let you make really fast dashboards. So let's take a look at how that works. Over here, I have a dashboard that is pulling in live Twitter data from the Twitter API for the Google Data Studio hashtag. And this is a Twitter data source. If I view this and then I refresh it, you'll see that it takes some time. It will reach into the connector, it will pull the API, it will format the data. So it takes some time to update and refresh the dashboard. If we want to make this faster, what we could do is go back in, select the data source, and use the extract feature on it. And to use the extract feature, what we will do is select extract data as a new connector. And then, so this is a new connector, extract data. Over on the left side, I will have all the data sources that I've created previously. So I'll use the Twitter data source. I'll add that to the report. I'll pick the fields that are relevant for me. So I'll pick screen name, Twitter text, date, retweet count, and I'll pull back the date as a date range. As I click this Save and Extract button, what Data Studio does is reaches into that connector, pulls in all the data, and saves it on GCS as a small bucket where all this data is materialized as a static source. So I'll add this back to the report. And as I look at the report, I see there's this new untitled data source, the one that I just created as a materialized data source. And if I view this and I click on refresh, you can see it's very fast. So you can take this data source, and then you can create new charts, tables with it, and it'll remain very fast. So that is one option. The limitations of extract data is that the data set is limited to 100 megabytes, and we're working on a feature which will let you automatically schedule updates to the extract data. So you can set up scheduling, and the data extract would automatically get updated at a certain interval. But what if you want to work on the other end of the spectrum where you want really fresh data for your users? As a dashboard owner, you can always refresh the dashboard, but if you want the dashboard to be updated for your users as well, then you need a different approach. And then Ruth's solution was basically to use the new feature of data freshness. This is available both for BigQuery and Sheets, where you can go into the options for a data source and set the interval by which the data source should be updated. For Sheets, it will be between 15 minutes to 12 hours, and for BigQuery, it will be between 1 hour to 12 hours. So this was Ruth's first week as a manager. The first week goes by, she goes home, spends the weekend, she comes back on Monday, opens her email, and this is the first email she sees. It's an email from the compliance department. All of these reports you're making and sharing with people, what are you doing about data governance? Are you making sure that everyone is viewing exactly the data that they have access to? We know that we have a lot of data that can be shared across organizations, across the entire organization, but there are other data sets that can be shared only for specific people. So people shouldn't be viewing all the reports. They should be able to view only the stuff that they have access to. For this, she already had an existing solution, which was enforcing viewers' credentials. For each data source in Data Studio, you can go into the dataset option and set the data source access level to either owners or viewers. Owners lets you view the data source based on whoever created the dashboard or the report. But viewers ensures that if you're viewing the report, your credentials would get passed into the data source. And if you don't have access to the data source, you cannot view the data. For example, let's say there is a worksheet with all the HR information about employees. HR department has access to it, but the sales department does not. So if you create a dashboard from that data source and then share that with other people, the HR employees will see what they're supposed to see on the left side. But if someone has access to the dashboard who is not an HR employee, not within that organization, they'll still be able to open the dashboard, but they'll just see that you don't have access to this data because that worksheet, that sheet was not shared with you. So this is done at a complete entire data set level.
Hey, Minhaz, can you talk us through what we can do if we need the security to be administered on a row basis?
That is a good question, because this is what we're showing right now is like at an entire data set basis, but oftentimes organizations would require row-level access. For example, in Ruth's team, there are 2 analysts. One of the analysts work on the West Coast. They focus mostly on California and Oregon, and another analyst focuses on the DC metro area, the DC, Virginia, and Maryland. So the data she has on flights, she would like to separate out this data so that people can only see what they have access to. And to do that, if they want to implement row-level security, Ruth was trying to find ways. What can she do? So there was this analyst in her team who used to work as a developer a long time ago. They have some familiarity with JavaScript, but they're not a full-blown developer. They're not like a coder. So they looked into the Data Studio's developer website, and they realized that they can get this done using community connectors. They can implement a community connector and enforce viewers' credentials with it. The way it would work is basically over here, let's say we have a report. This is the report view for the analyst who is viewing the data for West Coast. So they can only see California and Oregon data. And here are all the cities for California and Oregon. I'll take the exactly same report, copy the URL, and I'll open it up for the other analyst who has access to the West Coast data, East Coast data. So I'll paste in the exact same report URL. I won't change anything else. And as I access this report, you'll see that this person will not see the West Coast data. They'll see only the East Coast data. So you have Virginia and Maryland. So these are the exact 2 same reports, but over here, based on who is accessing the report, you're filtering the data for the same data source. It's the same table, only the rows are getting filtered based on who is viewing the report. And to do that, all the analysts had to do is go into the Data Studio's developer's website, figure out how this community connector works. We've made it much easier. Previously, you'd have to use the Bigquery connector using the REST API, but we've introduced a new feature called Advanced Services that lets you pass configuration directly from Data Studio into Bigquery. So if you're writing a connector, the only thing you need to pass is just the configuration that I want data from this table, this is how you should filter it, and these are the access token, which makes the code very small. The connector that I showed you, the dashboard, the connector code for that is this. This is it. It's only like probably 100 lines of code. And most of it is just configuration data. There is no business logic involved. So anyone with minimal level of understanding of JavaScript should be able to implement this in a very short time. So that gets implemented. A lot of people in Ruth's organization are now using Data Studio. They're creating reports. A new problem comes up. It takes a long time for people to get ramped up. If they have never used Data Studio before, if they have never used Bigquery before, once they start, it takes them some time to learn it. So to go from just data to a completed dashboard, it takes maybe days or hours. So a director comes by Ruth's desk and asks, hey, can we make this whole approach much faster? Can we maybe implement templates so that a new user can come in, start with a template, and they can get started just like that, pretty fast? And since a lot of users will be doing this, we also need to keep this under cost. Like, we have to have cost control and make sure the performance does not get bogged down, even though a lot of people are using it. So Ruth remembers that last year at the next video, she saw a similar solution, which was the Chrome UX report. It was a connector created with Data Studio. this is what the connector looks like. You basically go in. This connector has about more than a terabyte of data, about 5 million different URLs. You just put in a URL, and this is exactly the workflow a normal user would complete. They go to this URL, they put in their configuration information. I'll just type in google.com, click connect, and this pulls in the data from BigQuery, configures it, and then as I click create report, this lands me into a templated report with my configured data. So a regular user that have like previously no experience with BigQuery or Data Studio whatsoever can go from just nothing to their configured template that they can edit and share with other people in just 4 clicks. This is something we already showed you last year, but we have made more improvements from this. So this is a report for google.com. If we want to change the configuration, if you want to see this for a different website, what we would have to do is go back to the connector, put in a new configuration, go through the flow again, and that would create us a new report. So we would get new reports for every URL, for every website. We tried to make this simpler, so what we did was a scalable report. This is the exact same report, but when you enable the URL parameters, you can just go in and change the configuration through the URL. So this is showing data for Wikipedia. I can just go in the URL parameters, I just change this for Stack Overflow. It's still the same report, but it will now change the configuration, call the connector again, fetch the new data, cache the new data, and show you the information for Stack Overflow in the same dashboard. So the viewer's credentials paired with this URL parameter lets you do massive scalable reporting. You can just create one report and roll it out to thousands of users. They will only see the information that they have access to. You can also take a report and then pass configurations in the URL, and the user will end up seeing different data based on what configuration you're passing. So this is the configuration of the architecture of the connector that we showed you last year. So that gets solved. People are now using all of their internal data in the FAA. They're creating analyses. They're creating dashboards. An analyst in Ruth's team comes up and says, I found something externally. There's an external data set that we think would be really helpful. It is not within our organization. It is not on BigQuery. It is not in our database. But we'd like to bring that in and use that with Data Studio. And this data set was on Kaggle. So how could we bring in Kaggle data into Data Studio? There was a solution available because we launched the integration between Kaggle and Data Studio. Let's see an example for that. Maybe I'll go onto the Kaggle website. This is a flight data set on Kaggle website. And the good thing is, if you log onto the Kaggle website and navigate to any Kaggle data set, you'll have a little button here that says Open In. And you can click Data Studio. You can pick which file you want. And that will take you from the Kaggle interface into Data Studio with the connector configuration selected, and it will pull in live data from Kaggle and let you do all the analysis in Data Studio. You can also take this data and blend it with your own data. Now, they brought in the external data, they marked it, everything has been going well. Ruth gets more responsibilities. The supply chain analytics team has been merged into Ruth's team. They have been doing a really great job, but in the supply chain, they have this prevalent practice of using Sankey chart for a lot of their analysis. And that's a chart type that is not natively available in Data Studio. So this is a new problem that Ruth has to solve, that I have to make this chart type available in Data Studio because my team needs to use it. So how could they do that? There is a new feature available. It is under developer preview, which is the community visualization. And here's an example of a Sankey chart available in Data Studio. What you can do is create your own chart using JavaScript. You can use any popular library that you want. You can use D3 or some other library, create the chart, use our API, import that chart into Data Studio, and then that chart will get rendered in Data Studio. And it will work with your existing data pipeline that is available in Data Studio. It will work with all the filters, other chart types, cross-filtering. Everything will work out of the box as it is. There is a nice gallery of community visualizations available. This is made by one of our partners, Click Inside. This is showing small multiples, which is interactive. We have scatter chart, which is another interactive scatter chart where you can do filtering. You can exclude this one. You can add this back. If you want more information about how to use community connectors, you can go into our developer site and check out the instructions there. Now, community visualizations are not limited to only the stuff we have here. You can build your own chart, for example, the one we built for the Community Viz launch. This is a chart that shows the release notes of Data Studio over the last few years. For example, in 2018, these are all the releases we had, and as we hover over things, you can see that we launched this feature in July, where Data Studio became a part of the Google Marketing Platform. So if you have a idea for a chart, if you know JavaScript or have access to a resource that can build JavaScript charts, you can bring in your own chart and render that in Data Studio. Now, this chart shows what we have done over the last few years, but to show you what we're going to do over the next few years, here's Riccardo.
All right, thanks, Minhaz. See, I'll wrap us up really quickly. We want to get to your questions as well, for sure. But I just want to talk a little bit about how we think about the investments that we're making in Data Studio. Our goal really is to help you make better decisions by helping you along this entire workflow, from how you connect to your data, how you make it fast with things like Bigquery Bi Engine, how you get it into the right form, how you analyze it using the visual tools that we have, like filtering and sorting and drill down. Today I showed drill down in charts. Now we're starting, to extend that to pivot tables as well. And we want to work on other types of interactivity that add analytic value as well. On the reporting front, conditional formatting is something that we've heard from a lot of people, and Mary and team are hard at work on that feature. Distribution, we showed scheduled email today. We're interested in other types of distribution as well. And so we have investments in each one of these areas. There's also cross-cutting investments. We're always investing in our developer platform. We showed community visualizations, community connectors. We're really just getting started with those. And so we envision a world where there's lots and lots of community visualizations that you can go and choose from and build upon as well. And one of the areas where we heard a lot of feedback is Data Studio started as this very, very easy-to-use tool. It looks a lot like Google Docs and Google Slides, and the files get saved in your Google Drive. But what happens when somebody leaves the company? What happens when you want shared ownership of things? What if you are a Google Cloud customer and you manage everything in GCP projects? Wouldn't it be nice if you could store your reports and your data models in GCP projects? What if you have Google Cloud Identity set up and you have policies there set up? What if you could hook into those things? So one of the things we're looking at and working on is how can we bring more enterprise administration capabilities built on Google Cloud Platform to Data Studio? So stay tuned for that. Just recapping some of the things that we showed today. These are all available today. They've either been just launched very recently or they were launched literally this morning. Drill down is one of them. Scheduled email delivery we launched earlier this year. Sorting launched today as well. The Bigquery Bi Engine, of course, launched today. If you want to stay on top of this stuff, support.google.com/datastudio. We publish release notes every week or so. So stay tuned for all the latest announcements.